This is A's Cast Live, your comprehensive look at athletics.
Rooker, it's a fly ball to deep center. Robert going back at the track. He will turn and watch it fly.
And 29 other MLB clubs.
Adolis Garcia sends one the other way. That sends Carroll back. He's at the wall. And the legend grows. Ronald Acuna, another milestone in a truly historic season.
Julio with an absolute nuke out to left field.
It's Glaber Day. And like a good Glaber, Torres is there.
Join us as we take you inside the baseball universe. From humidors to Stuff Plus to walk-off dingers, we have you covered. Spend your afternoon with us, only on A's Cast Live. Here's Chris Townsend.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to A's Cast Live. We have a busy show for you today. You're going to like it. I got to tell you, something that would normally not play here, but I think you're really going to enjoy it. Tabitha Soren has written she's got a book with a lot of incredible pictures following our 2002 Moneyball draft class. How is she connected to Moneyball? She is the wife of Michael Lewis, the author of Moneyball. And if you're old enough to remember, she was also a VJ, not a DJ, a VJ. She worked on MTV back in the day. So you'll remember her. Once you see her, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I remember seeing her on MTV. Fabulous. We just taped her. Sorry we're a little late, but we were just taping her. She's got a book signing this Saturday at 4:30 in the East Side Club. And she's fascinating. And she followed the draft class, the Moneyball draft class, which is talked about in the book, was really a famous draft class, and follows them throughout their lives and where they are now. So she is going to join us. The book is Fantasy Life, Baseball, and the American Dream. Once again, a book signing in the East Side Club, Mount Davis, 4:30 to 5:30 this Saturday before the Yankee game. Bill Moriarty from Athletics Farm is going to be here at 2:30. So Ed Sprague has just done do we have that running on A's Cast right now as we speak?
Yeah, I got it up the other day. Bill actually sent it over Saturday, put it up Sunday, so it's been running on A's Cast since Sunday. Good conversation. Ed Sprague talked about Nick Kurtz, Max Muncy and his future, the 10-man pitching staff.
The two guys that are hurt?
Yeah. Well, Muncy's going to be playing, well, we'll get to it, and instructs. A lot of good stuff in there. Gunnar Hoagland. So they went over everything.
All right, so we're just going to say, Bill, what happened? What do you got? What do you got for us? Doug Glanville, too, ESPN, The Athletic, Cubs, Marquee Sports, former player, professor at the University of UConn, the great Doug Glanville, Sunday Night Baseball. He is going to be here at 3:30 as he is getting ready. He is gearing up. Folks, gear up. We are here. We're down to the nitty-gritty. Even though I always like to say 2012 taught us how every single game matters. It really, really does. But right now, we're so heightened with everything going on. We have the two battles going on in the Central as we speak. It is huge when you look at Tigers and Royals, and when you look at Twins Guardians. Stephen Vogt, we didn't get a chance to get it, but Stephen Vogt last night, a great win for the Guardians. And Stephen Vogt got into tears last night. And it just tells you everything that what it means at this time of the year. And where we are right now in this sport, where people are vying for these last spots. You essentially in the National League, you got three teams vying for two spots: the D-backs, the Mets, and the Braves. And in the American League, unless the Orioles completely tank, they're going to have the wild card. Same thing with the Royals. And really the battle now is the Twins and the Tigers. And who would have thought A.J. Hinch and the Tigers? Can they get in this thing? Or is this just the year of the AL Central, a division that we used to all act like was, it's not a big deal. Whoever wins the Central, doesn't matter. They'll get blown out in the playoffs. You could have 3 teams from the AL Central in the postseason. So all of these games, if you're watching the highlight shows last night, unfortunately, our game that finished 9-2 wasn't very good last night. Wasn't happy about the performance. We'll see how the A's are going to rebound tonight in Chicago. But all the highlights from around baseball yesterday, fabulous. And watching, all these teams are beat up. Everybody is digging deep for the very last of whatever you got to try and get into the postseason. Then you got the other teams that you're trying to build some type of foundation that takes you into next year. That you want to see players get better. You want to see younger players get better. You want to believe that there's hope that goes into the offseason and you can make some tweaks. Maybe you can sign some people. I mean, the Kansas City Royals are showing us that this year. And the Kansas City Royals, they're not a perfect team. But what they've been able to do this year and probably going to get in the postseason, I mean, and this is the time of the year where, people remember your career. When you do stuff at this time of the year and into the postseason, this is what you're truly remembered for. Yeah, you can talk about numbers, and obviously numbers are a huge part of our sport. But, you do something special at this time of the year, people in that city never, ever forget. They never forget. And guys are doing that right now as we speak. It's a lot of fun. We got a lot of battles going on. And this really also is the brilliance of the extra wild card. Look how many teams are still in this thing because of it.
Yeah, we now got the Braves on the outside looking in. They're now a game behind the Mets because they lost the series. They lost last night to the Dodgers. The Mets end up walking off against the Nats. So the Mets take the last wild card spot in the NL. I mean, who would have thought the Braves would not be in the postseason? But I know they have a lot of injuries. But here are the Mets without Lindor, and the guy's probably going to finish second in the MVP
What's
voting.
the biggest surprise? The Mets getting into the postseason or the Braves not making it?
The Braves not making it.
Really?
I mean, it's just because everyone expected.
Nobody had the Mets making. Nobody. Teams that get hurt and flounder are one thing, but nobody had the Mets making the postseason. If we went back through all the different, everybody does it, right? From everybody from MLB.com to ESPN.com to CBSSports.com, all the different preview magazines, Athlon and everybody. Could you find anybody that picked the Mets to go to the postseason?
I'm going to go probably not, but a lot of people thought that the Braves were so deep with their position core and their pitching staff with getting Chris Sale, who probably will win the Triple Crown in the National League and the Cy Young. They thought that they would go far, and here they are. All the injuries, Albies is going to start a rehab assignment, I think, soon, but you don't have Acuna, you don't have Austin Riley, and here are the Mets. Getting it, Jose Iglesias to hero, tied the game last night, and Marte walks it off. The guys that are coming through for the Mets, it's not the polar bear, it's not the high-profile guys. It's the guys that they signed, like Jose Iglesias. Sean Manaea pitched well last night for the Mets.
Have you been paying attention to Sean Manaea?
He's been really – ever since you said he'd win Player of the Month, he's been really good. I think he's had one stinker, right?
Sean Manaea, it wasn't even that bad of it wasn't really a stinker. He gave up some runs. Sean Manaea has been like the only pitcher, him and like Chris Sale, to go like 7 innings for how many? Put up his game logs. How many straight games he's gone 7 innings?
That's what I was going to. I want to see since you made that bold proclamation at the beginning of.
I told you Manaea was hot. I'm riding the Manaea train.
So since the beginning of August. So do we include that last July start, or do we?
Yeah. Well, look at how many starts he's gone 7 innings in a row.
He's gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different times. He's gone at least 7 innings. There's a couple 6 2/3 in there. So over his last 10 starts, he's 5-1. The Mets are 9-1 in those games. He has a 2.49 ERA, 76 punchies, as they say, and 16 walks. And that's 65 innings pitched for Manaea. So very solid for the former A's left-hander for the Mets, who a guy they thought, well, we know what we're getting out of him. He wasn't great for the Giants last year, kind of fell off with the Padres, and here he is pitching like an ace. I hate to throw the term ace out there.
Wow.
But pitching like an ace for the Mets because, they are obviously they don't have their ace. Well, I don't know if you really count Kodai Singh as an ace, but he's their highest paid pitcher. That's not Verlander or Scherzer.
Here is where I would disagree with you. A good team that has a bunch of guys hurt and falls short is not a shocker. And that will be the Braves story. Right? Good team, bunch of their top players got hurt. They're not able to make the postseason.
Well, you can make the argument, well, the Dodgers are going through the same thing. They have no pitchers, and Mookie was hurt at one point, so is Freddie Freeman. The only guy they've really had was Towny, who's having a historic season. But, yeah, you can say the same thing about the Dodgers. But
we're talking about the Braves. Good team that was supposed to be really good has a bunch of injuries. They fall short. That happens in sports all the time. The Mets story is amazing. I mean, they paid a bunch of people to go away. It was like creative financing, right? Trying to lessen their tax, try to just get guys here. We'll pay the Rangers for Scherzer. We'll pay the Astros. We'll pay a lot of the salary. I mean, they're paying a ton of money to have guys go away. And here the Mets are right now clinging, and Lindor's hurt, and they're clinging to that last spot. The Cubs are done. Cubs are absolutely done. But this is what adding playoff teams does. It keeps teams, like everybody was so worried about having not great teams in the postseason. Everybody's going to be over 500. And it just makes for more intrigue, more excitement in our game. These teams coming down the stretch and battling to get into the postseason. It's been a lot of fun. And you have a lot of these players. Ketel Marte going deep. He's back with the D-backs. That's good to see. The Padres have really established themselves as a team that I don't think anybody is going to want to play. Our races for the MVP, our races for like Rookie of the Year. George in San Francisco wanted me to ask you, because obviously the guy we saw last night, not Paul Skeens, but Shota Imanaga, showed everybody last night why he's so special. You can tell the way he hides the ball behind him, and then he's coming. I mean, it's like I can't imagine what it's like visually to see. I mean, you're so used to everybody being up here. He's coming from, I can see where it's. Can you imagine a split finger coming from here? You can see how he doesn't throw hard, but yet he's really hard to hit. And a fly ball pitcher, and our boss Dallaire, was Dallaire working the game last night?
Yeah.
They had the graphic of the way the wind's working at Wrigley, and it swirls. And, if it's not blowing out, it is tough to get fly balls, even though Brent Rooker, great to see Rooker go deep last night. But it's tough to hit the ball out at Wrigley Field. Shota Imanaga could be your Rookie of the Year, but then it's like, slow down. Jackson Merrill in San Diego has had an unbelievable year, and he's had an unbelievable second half, and he has so many, the walk-offs and the key hits in the 8th inning and the walk-offs. Paul Skeens, we say all the time, we need star starting pitchers. Wouldn't this be the perfect time for Paul Skeens to win Rookie of the Year? And we were talking off the air, Churio on my fantasy team, who, by the way, has come back to life finally.
At the end of the season, great.
Steady the ship. Steady the ship.
You're building for next year.
Yeah. Do we get to keep any of these guys?
I don't
want the majority of them. He's made a case for what he has done in Milwaukee. And by the way, Milwaukee with a win tonight can clinch the NL Central.
Win tonight, Cubs loss. Need the Cubs to lose, too. Need the A's to win. And the Brewers need to beat.
They win tonight and win tomorrow. It's over. And I think they're going to get 2 more wins. And it's all over.
I remember a certain individual who said that Ollie Marmol and the St. Louis Cardinals were going to chase down Pat Murphy and the Brewers.
The same guy that said that 3 home runs by Rooker in a game, that guy?
No, it's not that guy.
Wasn't that guy?
No, the guy that said that is talking about the Cardinals, who are on pace to have their first back-to-back losing seasons since 94-95. Remember, those are shortened seasons. So you have to go back to the 50s, the last time the Cardinals had back-to-back under 500 seasons.
So I bet on the Cubs last year to overtake the Brewers.
Yep.
Doubled down this year, but I went with the Cardinals this year. Question will be, who do I take next year to dethrone? I will stay on this bad take.
I can tell you right now who the chic pick in the Central is going to be next year.
Oh, stop it with your Pirates.
It's going to, everyone's going to be like, oh, Paul Skeens, Jones, and Keller, who can beat them?
So George in San Francisco wants to know, are you going to be a homer? Or are you going to be somebody who's a baseball analyst and give us the correct who should be the National League Rookie of the Year?
No, do you want the analyst answer or do you want the fan answer?
Why would I care what a fan answer is?
Because I think the answer is the same. I think it's either, personally, I'm basing off of performance, team performance, all that. I think it's Jackson Chourio. Nothing against Jackson Merrill, but I think what Jackson Chourio is doing at 20 years old, I know he's 21 now, and he's playing in center field for the Brewers, is pretty incredible. He's playing outfield for the Brewers. They have a couple good outfielders, but I think
if I'm going position player, I'm going Jackson Merrill.
He's had a great year too. Former shortstop moved to center field this year. They said, "Hey, we need."
It's not a great year, man. The walk-offs, he's winning games for them. Winning games, walk-offs. Do you watch Quick Pitch? He had a week where he had like 3 walk-offs. I mean, it's Imanyaga is the guy, and I hate Japanese professional players coming over and winning Rookie of the Year because they're not rookies, even though technically they are. But Ichiro should not be Rookie of the Year. Hideo Nomo should have never been Rookie of the Year. These guys are sharpened.
Shota's what, 29, right? He's actually older than Ichiro, and Ichiro came over.
Just because the rest of the world didn't realize that Japanese baseball is really good, baseball people know Japanese baseball is really good. It's not like, oh, it's like playing AAA. No, it's not. Japanese baseball is legit. And these guys, their best players coming over are not guys like, oh, we're lucky they're competing. No, these guys can play. And the WBC has shown us once again. Kind of hard to go against. Do I have the notes from him yesterday? Cubs are now 22-6 in his starts. Kind of tough to, if we're going to go by letter of the law, it really is tough to say that Shota Imanyaga is not the Rookie of the Year.
I think I saw a stat yesterday just talking about, I mean, Shota's been great. And if you're talking about, I didn't pick Paul Skeens, but he's been awesome for the Pirates. His ERA is almost under 2 in the starts that he's had. I think he's lost 3 games on all 3 where I think he has been able to beat the Cardinals. And that's because they've scored 3 runs in 3 starts for him. One of the starts, he went 8 1/3, and the Pirates couldn't score a run. They couldn't score a run last night for him. So, but I think it comes down to the position players for the NL Rookie of the Year between the 2 Jacksons, for sure. Merrill and Chourio. They both have, if you look at baseball reference.
You play every day.
You look at the baseball reference WAR, their WAR is the same. Merrill has more home runs because Chourio got at that horrible start to the year, but he's bounced back. He's at 273 on the season. He's one of only 3 players to ever have a 2020 season in their age 20 season. That's Vida Pinson and Mike Trout, and now Jackson Chourio. So what he's done, but what Merrill's done, they were like, hey, you're a shortstop. Go play center field. We need you out there. It's been an incredible story for him. And the walk-offs and the big hits, I'm not shortchanging it. I just think Merrill or Chourio playing on the division leading team that's going to clinch the division might one up him if you look at those as your reference point.
They got one more win.
I can't help that they don't play in the same division as the Dodgers.
They've got one more win. All right. That's your opinion. All I have to do is Jackson Merrill walk-off, and it's a full page of Jackson Merrill walk-offs. So whatever you want to play the young card in the 2020, Jackson Merrill technically could be getting MVP votes, which I don't think Chourio will get.
No.
Jackson Merrill, look. Do you want to look? Why don't you look at my computer? These are all Jackson. All this is about the walk-offs he's been having. It's been unbelievable. Here you go. 7 hours ago, Jackson Merrill from Sports Illustrated, how he's making history as a rookie with walk-offs.
I'm looking at their OPSs. I mean, they're both over 800. Their OPS pluses are close.
Jackson's higher.
Yeah.
OPS plus is higher.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we're fighting. What is it? Picking boogers at 6 points.
I don't think I'm picking boogers with this one. This kid's getting walk.
I mean, he's going to he could be a 2020 guy too. He's a 24 homers and 16 stolen bases for Merrill. I will say, be a contrarian, he does have more at bats than Chourio.
Yeah, he's playing. He means more.
Of course he does.
I mean, that's the
They don't have a
thing.
center fielder. Well, they actually have a shortstop playing right field too.
I mean,
and a former shortstop playing left field and Jerickson Profar.
Doug Glanville is going to talk about that a little bit later when you start talking about someone like Lindor versus Ohtani. It means more to play. You factor more into the games the more you play.
I
right?
totally agree with that. I totally agree about Lindor versus him.
And then you look at Bobby Witt Jr. hitting a grand. He stole base number 29 last night, hit a grand slam. He now has got another hit. He's got 200 hits. And you're like, my God, we're living in the moment. We might be prisoners in the moment. But I got to tell you, this award season is going to be fabulous. It's going to be fantastic. By the way, according to your friend, Sarah Langs, you still believe in Sarah Langs, right?
Yes.
Jackson Merrill is tied for the third most home runs by a primary center fielder in their first career MLB season. Tied for third all time.
I'm not taking anything away from it. I'm just looking at it from, I'm basing off of team performance because that's what we do for MVP.
No, but Rookie of the Year is not off team performance. That's MVP. Rookie of the Year is based off what the individual player does. That's why
I think if Churro didn't get off to such a bad start, I think it'd be a lot closer.
That's why Skeens, technically, you cannot hold the Pirates' record against Skeens for Rookie of the Year. It has nothing to do with it.
We take away those
Rookie of the Year has nothing to do with team performance. It's all about individual performance.
If you take away his 10 wins, they're a 60-win team.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It has nothing. MVP, I can see where you say most valuable. Are you valuable, Andre Dawson, being on a bad team, putting up big numbers at Wrigley Field? Not really.
I get that.
A-Rod with the Rangers?
Yeah.
Not really. So valuable really should be, there should be something playing in games that matter when we're talking about the MVP. I now that I think, I haven't really thought about it, but Cy Young doesn't, it's not about how good your team is either. The only one really that factors in what your team has done is the MVP. All the other ones are truly into what you're doing as an individual.
Yeah, no, I get that. Bill's here, by the way.
Hi, Bill Moriarty. How are you?
Good. How you doing today?
We're excited to have you on because Ed Sprague was dishing some knowledge with you. So let it out. What do we got rolling? Tell us what Ed Sprague told you. I know we can hear it on A's Cast, but this is A's Cast Live. What do we know? We've got some exciting players. Unfortunately, guys are on the IL. What is going on with our minor league system?
Well, lots of good news, fortunately. As you mentioned, I talked to A's Farm Director Ed Sprague late last week, which you can find on the Farm podcast on A's Cast. And, we're right around the end of the minor league season now. So I wanted to talk to him about some of the development, some of the progress we've seen out of some of these prospects this year. And I think, a couple of the top guys that you have to be excited about really taking big leaps forward this year have been outfielders Colby Thomas and Henry Bolte. Somebody looked this up, and in the last 2 years, Colby Thomas, it turns out, has had more extra base hits over the last 2 years than any minor league player in the game, period. So this guy has real power potential. Right now, Colby Thomas is leading the A's minor league system with 43 doubles. He's leading the system with 30 home runs. He's leading the system with a total of 78 extra base hits this year. That's pretty impressive.
Did you ask Ed why he didn't come up?
Well, I think the main concern they have with Colby Thomas, and you can hear this in our interview, is the strikeouts. And that applies to both Colby Thomas and Henry Bolte. They both strike out once every 3 to 4 at-bats at this point.
They fit right in. They fit right in.
So I guess they probably would. So I think that's the main number. Ed mentions this. That's the main thing they'd like to see out of Colby Thomas is just getting a little more selective at the plate. Just shrinking that zone a little bit. Obviously, when he puts a bat on the ball, he can do some real damage. at the major league level, pitchers are a little better. You're going to have a little harder time doing that kind of damage if you're willing to swing it quite so frequently. So I think that's what they'd like to see. I'd expect, we'll probably see plenty of Colby Thomas in spring training next year. We'll probably see him start the year in Vegas. And, if and when he gets hot, we'll probably see him up. But, I'd expect that, as long as he's healthy, you'll probably see Colby Thomas, certainly by next summer, the second half of the season anyway. But if he keeps hitting like he is, it's going to be really hard to keep him down on the farm. That's for sure.
If he goes to spring training and rakes, how's he not on the team?
Well, that'll be a decision for them to make. I mean, you're obviously going to have your Lawrence Butlers in the mix, your JJ Bledays in the mix. We're assuming Andujar may be back, so there could be kind of a crowded outfield picture, and so we'll see what they decide to do. But I think that Colby Thomas could hit his way onto the team in spring, sure. But I think the most likely scenario is he starts the season in Vegas, he gets off to a good start, you see an injury, you see someone struggle, and then that's when you see him make their debuts, and then there's plenty of outfield prospects because right behind him, you've got Denzel Clark and Henry Bolte at Midland. And, Henry Bolte's had an amazing season, especially for a 21-year-old. He's got the second most extra base hits in the system. And Henry Bolte's leading the A's minor league system in stolen bases. He's got 46 stolen bases this year, too. So for a big guy with power to also be stealing that many bases, that's quite a lethal combo for Henry Bolte. Denzel Clark got off to a rocky start at the beginning of the season. He was coming back from shoulder surgery, but in the last 3 months, he's hitting over 300. He's stealing a lot of bases too. Denzel Clark's got amazing speed. He's stolen 36 bases this season, and he's playing a really good center field as well. He spent all season AA Midland. I'm expecting we'll see him at AAA Vegas to start next season. So, between Colby Thomas, Denzel Clark, Henry Bolte, that's a full outfield of top prospects, and they've all got real power, and two of them have got real dangerous speed as well.
Yeah, it's like the modern game is really for Denzel Clark and Henry Bolte. It's made for them. Big power, speed, home runs. We're sitting here, Cody's talking about Jackson Cheerio going 20. He's going to be a 2020 guy at the age, he's 20, right?
Yeah. He's 21 now, but it's his age 20 season.
So it's like it's just everywhere we look, right? Ohtani going to be 50-50. We've incurred stolen bases. The stolen base is back, baby. And to go with the power, that's just really, today's baseball. It's great to see. Kurtz and Muncy still on the IL?
Yes, they are. But their instructional league camp is going on in Arizona right now. They're both there. Muncy is actually taking at bats in instructs, so he's getting back in action. Their AFL, the Arizona Fall League, is coming up starting October 7th. Denzel Clark and Daniel Susac are going to be on the A's contingent there. If Muncy, if they feel he's healthy enough and they don't want to push him, and they're willing to push him, he could be on the AFL roster. If not, Henry Bolte could be on the AFL roster, and they're hoping that Nick Kurtz's hamstring will be well enough that he'll be able to be there for maybe the second half of the AFL season. So maybe by mid to late October, they're hoping he'll be able to get in some action there. So yeah, those guys are coming back. Nothing, too serious there. But with the minor league season ending, the only options for play are in the instructional league or in the AFL, which is coming up. But those guys are on their way back. By the way, Ed Sprague said to me too that Max Muncy missed about half the season being on the injured list. Yeah. Sprague said he thought if Muncy had been healthy, that he definitely would have, made his major league debut, with the big club this year. He's had about half a season at Vegas, but I think he hit around 290. He had 15 doubles, 10 home runs this season. So, he was looking good in the time that he was on the field. It was just the injuries that held him back this season. But he's looking, he's looking like he's ready to go. He was not struggling at AAA at all. So if it wasn't for the injuries, like Ed said, we may have seen Muncy already make his major league debut. But, obviously odds are it comes sometime next season. Well, and they are having him play some third base in the instructional league as well. So I made sure to check on that. Ed Sprague said he's getting in time at third there in instruct. So that's good to hear because, as we know, that's the biggest opening at the major league level. And with Jacob Wilson at short, that seems to be the spot for Max Muncy in the future.
Oh, there's just not an opening. There's a big hole, and it's called third base. And Brett Harris did not seize the opportunity. Just the reality is, could Max Muncy really be an everyday third baseman, an ideal third baseman at the big league level?
I mean, I think he could, and I think he's certainly better positioned to do it than anybody else in the system right now. I mean, he's been playing shortstop his whole life. It's, not that far away from third. He's got a strong enough arm. He hits for power, which is something you like to see in a third baseman, to have a little pop as well. He's still young. He's still getting bigger and stronger all the time. I mean, he looks a lot different than he did when he was drafted out of high school. He's a lot more of a big strapping guy now. And, again, he was a first round draft pick. He's got talent. He's got tools, and there's no one else in the system right now, I think, who's got a bigger upside than him. So I think getting him more reps at third so that he's ready for that opportunity in the near future, he's got the highest upside of any of our potential future third basemen, in my opinion, anyway.
All right, the biggest question of the day, Cody, I don't know if you were thinking of this. Between the three of us, I think it should be the number one question. How does a big, young first baseman hurt his hamstring? Who's even heard of that? What do you draft this kid? He's like all world out of Wake Forest. He's not a running back. How does a big first baseman have a hamstring problem?
Yeah, well, you're talking about our first round draft pick, Nick Kurtz. He was actually playing first base and stretching for a throw and just stretched it a little too far. And that's how the hamstring went. But it doesn't seem to be, an overly severe thing. Like I said, they're hoping he'll be able to get back in action in the Arizona Fall League in mid to late October. So, it's just one of those weird, freaky things that happens, just like, Jacob Wilson, his first game, and having to go on the IL, But Nick Kurtz got in about 12 games between when he first got started. He ended up at Midland, and in those 12 games, I think he hit about 364, something like that. Had 4 home runs. So his first 12 games in pro ball, he looked pretty good, hitting above 350, hitting 4 home runs in 12 games anyway. And Ed Sprague was very excited talking about him too. I mean, he's a big kid with power who also is a contact hitter as well, can put the bat on the ball and takes a lot of walks, which, makes everybody happy. So Nick Kurtz has everything you could hope for. And for your first round pick to make it to Double-A, right there, in the first go round is a good sign. So Nick Kurtz could not be too far away as well. So obviously, as a first baseman, we could have questions with him and Tyler Soderstrom and where do all these guys go? You still got Ryan Noda floating around. So a lot of left-handed hitting first baseman in the mix right now. But, Nick Kurtz looks like to be in a good position to put himself in the conversation sooner rather than later.
Does this mean you got to find somewhere else for Tyler Soderstrom?
Yeah, last offseason, I was really hoping that they would start this season with Tyler Soderstrom getting some reps at third base in Vegas. He played all over the field when he was younger. He played plenty of infield when he was younger. And, since that's such a hole, we knew he was going to start the year at Vegas. Why not, get him in some time at third? Unfortunately, they didn't do that. But, he could end up, maybe moving there in the future, could end up maybe in the outfield in the future. Maybe something happens. He ends up in the DH position. But we're definitely, if Nick Kurtz develops as quickly as we hope, we're certainly going to end up with a bit of a crunch around the first base bag. I mean, of course, I guess they could always put him back behind the plate, too. I know that wouldn't make you happy. But, they're going to have to figure out something to do if Soderstrom and Kurtz, both first-round draft picks, end up looking like real major league hitters. Something's going to have to happen. I mean, Kurtz did play a little corner outfield in college, too. Not a lot, not lately, but that could be an option as well. But if they're both good hitters, they'll find a place for both of them in the lineup, I'm sure.
Well, behind the dish, I mean, Langelier's not going anywhere. And McCann is a left-handed bat and a far better defensive catcher than Soderstrom. I think the pitching staff and I all agree that Soderstrom shouldn't be catching. I love the idea of why not? Let's see him at third left field with Andujar. We'll see what happens there. People need to remember Brent Rooker is going to get his right arm taken care of in the offseason, and Rooker's going to want to play some outfield again next year. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic. Can't wait to see.
Yeah.
Cody has a question for you to start the pitching out. When we start talking about the future of the rotation or maybe the bullpen for the Athletics. Cody, go ahead.
Bill, you sent me this the other day, and I showed it to Chris, and he was floored after paying was it 5.1?
I think it was 5.1 million.
5.1 million to a kid to play shortstop. Robert Poisson is now pitching for the Athletics.
That's right. You know, as you may recall, his hitting career didn't pan out that well, and finally, after enough opportunities, the decision was made to let him try pitching, and he was up for it. So he made his first appearance in the instructional league the other day. Pitched 1 inning, I believe, and was throwing up to 91 miles an hour in his first outing. He's throwing nothing but fastballs right now. They're just, kind of breaking him in slowly. But yes, Robert Poisson is now out on the mound for the A's in the instructional league. So we'll see how that pans out. I mean, to be honest, it couldn't pan out any worse than his hitting career did. So, let's hope the pitching works out a little better. But, he's up to 91 his first time out, Maybe he's got the arm to make it work. I mean, stranger things have happened. I think they like to try to salvage something out of that investment, and maybe putting him on the mound, he could be the next Sean Doolittle or something. But it's worth a try at this point.
Well, at least Lucas Ursig hit bombs at AAA as a third baseman and then switched. I don't know, 5.1 million. That's a tough one. All right, let's talk pitching, because we know you can't have enough of it. You just can't. You can't have enough. You need 1 million pitchers. There's 30 organizations. It is what it is. What is on the horizon for pitching?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of the A's minor league pitchers who had been injured in the past and we hadn't seen a lot of were able to get back on the mound this season and have good seasons. Gunnar Hoagland was able to throw 130 innings this season. I think he had about 120 strikeouts. He had a 2.80 ERA at Midland before he got called up to Vegas. Also, JT Ginn, as we see, he'd been injured his whole time with the A's, made it into the major league rotation this season. Also a guy, I don't know if you're aware of, Jack Perkins. I think he was a 5th round draft pick a couple of years ago. Great arm. He was injured early in the year, came back, had a 2.90 ERA at Midland this year, was averaging 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. And in Jack Perkins' last 27 innings, over 4 starts, he gave up just 1 earned run. So he's in good shape. Also, Ryan Cusick, I'm sure you remember, he's been moved to the bullpen, and he's been looking much more effective out of the bullpen. I think he's had about a 2.90 ERA as a reliever in Midland. He has a sort of a limited repertoire. He doesn't have a lot of pitches, so he's looking a lot better out of the bullpen. Could be another, Grant Holman type now that he's pitching out of the pen. A guy you may not be aware of, just drafted 13th round last season, left-hander Will Johnston, made it all the way to Midland this year. He's leading the system in strikeouts. He's got 137 strikeouts this year, and he's been averaging 12.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He was just a 13th round draft pick last year and a left-hander, and he's all the way up in AA Midland this season. He's looking like an interesting find. Of course, behind them.
What kind of stuff does he have?
He has really powerful stuff. He throws hard. He throws his stuff consistently well, and man, he just fools batters. You should watch the strikeouts. Guys in the minor leagues just don't know what to do. Again, a 13th round draft pick who throws really hard, a left-hander. And I was talking to Lansing manager Craig Conklin about him recently, and he was saying that this guy is such a pitcher that he studies everything. He said he's right next to me in the dugout every game, trying to figure everything out, watching every opposing pitcher and what they do. And, so he's a pitcher with stuff and a pitcher who knows how to pitch too. But again, leading the system in strikeouts and striking out 12.5, per 9 after just getting drafted in the 13th round last year, finishing the season in Midland. That's pretty impressive for him. And then right behind them, we've got, of course, our Cuban import, Luis Morales. They got about 80 innings out of him at Lansing this year. And then Steven Echeverria, the high school kid they drafted last year, too, got about 60 innings in at Stockton. So they're both on the way. But, I was thinking already about the depth chart, the pitching depth chart for the A's next year. As you know, you need at least 10 starting pitchers. And I'm thinking, look, we've got Sears, we've got Spence, we've got Estes, we've got Beto, we've got Basso, we've got Hogan Harris, JT Ginn, Gunnar Hoglund could be in the mix. Joe Boyle's still out there if he can get it together. Waldachuk will be back at some point next season, certainly by midseason. So that's I think 10 pitchers right there that, you can reasonably, imagine plugging into the rotation and not feeling, like you're in a really precarious position. And then right behind them, we've got guys, Blake Beers at AAA, James Gonzalez at AAA, Jack Perkins, who I mentioned, Mason Barnett, who we just got in the trade for Lucas Urseg. He made 7 starts at Midland. I think his ERA is about 2.60 over 7 starts at Midland in AA. Good chance he could be at Vegas next season too. So, I think there might not be a lot of frontline number one classic type starters in this mix.
It does not matter. You need guys that can give you innings and get outs. The kid we got for Urseg, his name again?
Mason Barnett.
I was hearing that they're really allowing him to stretch out like 6-7 innings when normally that's not happening. I thought that was really interesting how he's getting treated different than the other pitchers.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure the reason for that, but for whatever reason, they definitely decided to do that. A lot of starts. He was going 7 innings deep into games. You just don't see that a lot in the minor leagues anymore. It might not sound like much, but it is kind of rare these days. So, yeah, he was having really long outings. He was, racking up a lot of strikeouts, too, in those outings. And, again, I think his ERA was around 2.60 over 7 starts. That shows a pretty consistent performance there for Mason Barnett. And they're feeling, pretty high about him. So I think there's a good chance you see him at AAA Vegas next year. He could be in that mix, too. But I think, there's definitely, 10 or 12 starting pitchers potentially already that we could see in the mix for the A's next year that, aren't frightening names to consider. And you've also got to figure there's a good chance that sometime in the offseason they're maybe going to add another, veteran arm or two, as they tend to do, to supplement things. So I think the pitching situation, may be better than a lot of us, might expect. But when you start looking at the actual names and how a lot of these guys have performed this year, I think you've got a lot of legitimate starting options in the mix going into 2025.
If you make the right move, Kansas City with Seth Lugo has proven like you can make the right move and it doesn't have to be super expensive. Obviously you thought you were going to get that with Wood and Stripling. It didn't happen. But if you make that right move and you get one veteran guy in there who can give you a lot of starts and can eat up innings and get you outs, to then go along with, I still think J.P. Sears has earned the right 2 straight years, 32 starts last year. Right now he's sitting at 30. I think he should be the opening day guy. He has earned that right. But if you added like one more guy, I don't know. I don't want to go crazy because I don't want to get stuck with like the 2, like what you had this year, spending the money on Stripling and Wood. Neither one was worth the money. But if you could find one veteran guy, spend a little money, and then, we'll see what because, word on the street is that they are going to spend a little money this offseason because you got Aletmus Diaz money's gone, Stripling, Wood. There's going to be some money out there to spend.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. There aren't a lot of guaranteed contracts on the budget right now, so they should have. I think I did read somewhere recently, someone reported that the budget should be going up a little bit next year. Hopefully that's the case. But there's plenty of flexibility on the roster right now. They're not tied down by a bunch of big contracts. And, the front office is hopefully smart enough to find, maybe the right veteran starting pitcher or two to plug in, even if it's just for the first half of the season while some of the younger guys develop and, get their feet wet and stuff. You can rely on them until you're ready to bring up some other guys. But, I think we've seen such impressive, performances out of some of the young pitchers this year, like Beto and Basso and, even your Hogan Harris, your Joey Estes, these guys have put themselves really in the conversation for next year as guys you might be able to really rely on. And I'm with you. JP Sears is just so consistent. You need a guy like that. Again, maybe he's not a typical number one starter, but, he's a guy you send out there. He takes every turn, gives you a chance to win almost every time out. And, that's really valuable in this day and age when, a lot of starting pitchers, barely make 20 starts a year. A guy like JP Sears is really valuable, and I think Spence has been kind of similar this year too, following behind him. And you need those guys to just be your sort of consistent innings eaters, and then you can worry about filling in the other spots based on who's healthy and who's hot. I mean, Cole Irvin was that for the A's for a couple of years. He was their big innings eater, but JP Sears has really taken over that role now, and it's great to see. But it's great to see many guys behind him too. Gunnar Hoagland could be another guy to make his debut next year. Waldichuk coming back, and I think guys like Mason Barnett, Jack Perkins, very good chance we could see them in the major leagues next year too.
Well, I think the Dodgers have shown everybody, right? They spent almost $1.2 billion in the offseason, and now Glasnow is not going to be there for the postseason. They're going to have to duct tape it. They've used, 17 starting pitchers?
17, yeah.
So it just goes to show you can have all the money in the world. I mean, you basically, it's kind of like we're in Kentucky, and we're getting ready for the Kentucky Derby, and we need to have a ton of horses, train a ton of horses, and hope one of them or X amount of them, because the days of us sitting there at spring training, I will never do this again. And anybody that tries to do it, I'm going to tell them the data does not back you up and the numbers don't back you up. The days of going 1 through 5 starting rotation are over. They are over. Yeah. We don't have that anymore. There's no 1s, 3s, 5s. Who's a healthy body that can help me get through the season? That's what we're looking at. The average team is going to use 13 starters. We're at 13 right now, right?
Yeah.
The average team is going to use 13. If you're blessed to be like Seattle or San Diego this year to have like 7, who is at 8?
I think it was the Padres and the Nats.
So it was Seattle. Are they the only one at 7?
Yeah, it's just Seattle at 7.
I mean, if you're blessed to be Seattle and only use 7 starters, everybody else, you're using a ton of starters. So the days of us saying, who's your 5? Who's your 5? I'm going to need 10 or more guys.
Yankees have used 8 also.
Yeah, and when the A's are constructing their pitching staff at the beginning in the offseason, people are always looking at who are the 5 starters going to be. But the front office is looking at who are the 10 starters going to be. They're figuring who is going to be our starting rotation at AAA, and every guy we've got plugged in there, we got to figure is going to be a major league starter for us as well. So, if we don't have 5 guys in our system that we're comfortable having in the AAA rotation, we got to go out and find some, minor league free agents or somebody to plug in there, because that's what they're doing. They're looking at that AAA rotation as you're going to be in that AAA rotation at Vegas. You better be someone we can count on to come up at a moment's notice and start in the major leagues. If you're not ready for that, you can be a AA, but if you're in the AAA rotation, we're looking at you as a likely starter in the major leagues for us at some point during the season. So that's how they look at it when constructing the rosters.
And if you are a starter or a reliever and you've made it to Midland this year, you could be in the big leagues next year. Is that safe to say?
Oh yeah, very, very, very easily. Obviously, you're not. If you've got this stuff to be successful at AA, you are not far away. It was like you said, average 13 starting pitchers. Well, if you got 5 in the major leagues, 5 in AAA, that might be 3 guys starting the year in AA who end up in your rotation before the season's through as well. So you need to have some talented arms down there that can move. And again, I think a lot of the guys the A's have a lot of potential. They might not be big names, top draft picks, but there are guys who've been performing very well that have been moving through the system. And, I think at the start of the year, if you had asked people, oh, well, how will the A's be doing if, Brady Basso and Hogan Harris and JT Ginn, are pitching in the rotation, that would not sound very appetizing, but these guys are better than a lot of people realized. And, a lot of the guys behind them are too. Like I said, a lot of people don't know the names like Jack Perkins or Mason Barnett, but very good chance these guys could be pitching in the A's rotation at some point in the next season, and could be performing well, just like the guys who came up this year did too. And I'll tell you, this year's draft class is looking pretty strong across the board, besides just Nick Kurtz. The shortstop, Josh Kuroda-Grauer, I think he's hitting around 350 this season. And Ed Sprague mentioned, he compared him to Marcus Semien, but particularly sort of personality-wise, he said, he's a real take-charge leader on the field and really kind of an inspiring, guy to play with. But a guy hitting around 350 his first go-around. And Rodney Green, the center fielder out of Cal, at Stockton, he was hitting for power. He was stealing bases, playing center field, So there are a lot of guys people might not know much about, but a lot of the guys with maybe not the biggest names have been performing very well in the system, and those are the guys you kind of got to count on to break through to, you know, if you really want to make things come together for you.
Well, the first 2 starts at Basso, I've been very impressed. I've been very impressed.
The A's, you know, put him on the 40-man roster a while back, and a lot of people were kind of surprised, like, oh, who's this guy? Why is he he hasn't even been in AAA yet, you know? But they saw something in him, and you've seen those last couple starts, you know, what he's capable of. You know, he's got stuff, and he's also a smart pitcher, you know, who can locate. And you know, playing at Vegas, if you look at his numbers there, it didn't look that great. But as you know, that's what happens playing in that environment in Vegas. It's hard to evaluate some of these pitchers. Their ERAs are all inflated. You know, they come to the major leagues and they actually do better than they did in AAA. So don't be scared if you see some of these pitchers in Vegas with inflated numbers. Brady Basso's numbers are pretty inflated there, but you know, they get in the major leagues, and so it's a lot easier facing major leaguers in a real park than facing a AAA hitters in a park like Vegas and that high altitude sometimes.
Bill, you got to remember, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
that should be the A's coaching philosophy.
Always remember that. You got anything you want, Cody? Anything you got for him?
No, I'm good. I think we covered everyone we wanted to talk about.
You got Poussin in.
Yeah, I got Poussin in. Yeah.
Is he projected as a starter or reliever?
I mean, you know, I don't know that there's been much projected in any way, shape, or form at this point. I would suspect they'll start him as a reliever because if you're a person
high leverage guy,
should Mason Miller be more in the future?
Yeah. Well, you know, Mason Miller will be too expensive in a couple of years, and Robert Poussin could be ready to slip right in there. But yeah, these guys that convert, they're usually relief pitchers because, you know, he's probably not going to have an expansive repertoire of multiple pitches that you'd want for a starter. So it's just if he can throw hard, if he can throw gas, you know, you stick him in the bullpen, and you know, maybe he can come in and, you know, blow a few guys away here or there. But it's certainly interesting to see. I know when I posted about that the other day, there was a big reaction on Twitter to seeing news about Robert Poisson on the mound. Anyway,
I just want to know if he has that new rifle spin on that slider. Does he have that gyro rifle spin on the slider? That's right. What's the vert? I need to know.
There are no.
What's he got?
No reports on his spin rate yet. All we know is he's been up to 91 miles an hour. The old school radar gun can tell us that anyway.
That's a pretty big overview of everything that is going on in the minor league system. Is there anything we missed?
No, I think that's a lot of it. A couple other just little brief notes, maybe. Cooper Bowman, second baseman, came over from the Yankees in the Frankie Montas trade, having a great season in Midland. They moved him up to Vegas, and now they've been having him play center field in Vegas. So that's been kind of interesting. Lifelong second baseman. Now he's mainly playing in center field in Vegas, trying to increase his options going forward. Darrell Hernandez is down in Vegas hitting .350. So hopefully the next time he comes back up, he can get over 200 in the major leagues. That would be nice to see as well. Also, as I mentioned, the Arizona Fall League is coming up starting October 7th. And, you know, we're going to have guys like Denzel Clark, Daniel Susac there. You could see either Muncy, Bolte, or Nick Kurtz down there. So that's worth keeping an eye on as well. But otherwise, hopefully everybody stays healthy in the offseason. Nobody has any freak injuries before spring training. And, you know, we can get a healthy complement of talented young players into Mesa come next spring, ready to take things to the next level next season.
Covering the minor league system, nobody is better, second to none. Bill, you're the best. And thank you thank you for everything you do for A's Cast. You add so much value.
Well, as you know, these guys I'm talking about, you might not have heard of. You'll be seeing on the big league club before long, so it's worth paying attention to. But thanks for having me on, Towny. Always great talking to you guys.
Take care, Bill. Wow, you got any questions?
No, I mean, I think we asked it and he couldn't answer it. Should Mason Miller be worried about Robert Poisson coming?
Can Henry Bolte play third? Can somebody figure out how to play third base?
Well, that's what Tommy Tanks is for.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Tommy Tanks.
But I don't know. Max Muncy, if he can play it, he could debut next year.
I mean, you forget. You know, you forget about our buddy Hernandez. I love Hernandez.
We have the guy that's,
sometimes in life, Cody, somebody's not a perfect fit, but that's okay. right? You don't always have to, teams have won championships with not the ideal roster, right? You've had guys have to play different positions that normally you wouldn't say is their strongest position. Guys have won World Series, where you've had to put somebody somewhere else because there's an injury or, it happens.
Yeah, and I think that, there's another guy down in the minor leagues. He couldn't hit really when he came up here. I mean, he had a couple home runs when he debuted. But Brett Harris is supposed to be a guy that plays really good defense, but the bat just isn't there yet. So that's another guy that they're projecting to be maybe the third baseman of the future. But if Muncy can grab those reins and take it, I think the A's would have a set infield for years to come with Kurtz coming up the pipeline. You have Soderstrom back now. So you have first covered. I
love the idea of Soderstrom taking some ground balls at third.
Well,
remember, Sodi said he played shortstop back. He's like, I can play shortstop.
Well, we're talking to David Force next week. I talked to him today.
Oh, so he's going to poo-poo it.
Catcher. So he's a catcher again.
Yeah, they won't tip their hand. Is there anything that you've ever said to David Force? He goes, Cody, I like that idea.
No, he shot down my idea of me making a draft pick for the team, so that was shot down.
You keep going Logan Davidson at him, and you keep getting denied.
I know. He hated my Rule 5 picks this year. He was right, though. Mitch Spence has been pretty good.
Mitch Spence has been great. He's going tonight. All right, coming up next, a connection, a book to Moneyball. How about that? And a signing. You can get it and get it signed by the author this Saturday at the A's and Yankees game in the East Side Club at 4:30. We talk about it next right here on A's Cast Live.
This is Commander Cody, and fall is upon us, and Linksole has dropped their new fall line. New pants fit for a more custom experience with elevated layers and performance polos to help transition from season to season, no matter if you're wearing them out on the golf course, out to dinner, or just hanging out with friends. Some effortless looks to help you find the right look and feel for any occasion. Go to their website, linksole.com. That's linksole.com, and find out how you can unlock 20% off your next order. Remember, in the big leagues, to play good, you got to look good.
Where does one community end and the next begin? Across the railroad tracks? On the other side of the river? Is it between the east side and the west side? At Comerica Bank, we believe it's all one community, and we're all part of it. That's why Comerica has invested over $20 million for affordable housing, financial education, and workforce development in lower-income communities. Because when we raise expectations for everyone, we all rise. Member FDIC, Equal Opportunity Lender.
Hi, fans. This season, Kingsford Capital Management is the official hedge fund sponsor of the Oakland A's. At Kingsford, down to business is their way of seeing the world. Investing has its pitfalls, treacherous chasms of half-truth and despair. Kingsford's mission is to create opportunity through application of proven innovation and entrepreneurial focus with trust, tenacity, loyalty, and growth, establishing a strong reputation as a proven intended and validated bedrock of American finance. Kingsford Capital, down to business.
If you haven't been to the Chicken Pie Shop in Walnut Creek, what are you waiting for? You're going to love the new menu, and it's a great place to watch all the pennant race action and the upcoming NFL and college football seasons. Come taste their world-famous chicken pie that has been served in Southern California for 86 years. Spacious indoor and outdoor dining, perfect for your next corporate party or birthday celebration. Don't forget free parking. For more information, go to chickenpieshopwc.com. That's chickenpieshopwc.com.
Hey, Oakland A's fans, step up to the plate with Xfinity Internet. Get the fastest speeds and low-lag streaming for an incredible viewing experience that knocks it out of the park. And you'll have a consistent connection with reduced buffering and freezing, so you can stay in all the action inning after inning. When it's game time, make sure to catch it all with internet that's powerful and reliable. Stream sports from the best seat in the house with Xfinity, because it's only live once. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed. Many factors affect speed. For factors affecting speed, visit xfinity.com/network management.
This is the place where you can dance like nobody's watching, win like nobody's business, and get away like you mean it. So what are you waiting for? Come join the party. Take that evening out and make it a night you'll never forget. This kind of action can't be beat.
Streaming from the studio, A's Cast Live continues with Chris Townsend.
Sports here on A's Cast Live. Tabitha Soren joins us. She has a book signing coming up this Saturday, East Side Club, between 4:30 and 5:30. She has the book Fantasy Life, Baseball and the American Dream. Once again, this Saturday, 4:30 to 5:30, the East Side Club. Looking back at 2002, obviously, we remember the book Moneyball, but this is going to be looking a little bit more into the guys that were drafted. Can't wait to read the book. I'm going to get my hands on it Friday. Tabitha, how are you?
I'm great. Do I have to talk the way you are? Because I'm afraid I'm going to sound very understated because I don't have my sports vibe on yet.
No, you don't need to. I'm your typical sports broadcaster. It's what we do. But no, you've had a lot of vibe. I can't wait to talk to you about this. We got to a little bit later get into MTV because I am the MTV. Back when MTV was music videos, I'm of that generation. So some of us still remember how great and how influential MTV was back in the day and a pioneer. But first, let's talk about the book that you're going to be signing this Saturday starting at 4:30. Obviously, your husband did Moneyball, a bestseller that turned into a movie, changed sports in so many different ways, just not baseball, changed all of sports. Then it changed business. It was very powerful. You're now coming on the back end, and we're looking at a lot of the guys, the famous Moneyball draft. You followed those guys. So just take us through how the book started, why you took on this project, because you've had a lot of incredible projects in your career. How did this all get started?
Well, back when I think Michael Lewis had finished Moneyball, but it wasn't out yet, I believe. He wanted to go to spring training, and the only way I'd agree to go with him was if he and Billy Bean, who was the general manager at the time, let me shoot spring training because I'm not a baseball fan and I was afraid I'd be just totally bored. And so once Billy said, sure, all access, here you go. I tried to copy Michael Zagaris as much as possible so I could find my way because I didn't really know how to shoot sports either. But I thought that it was really an opportunity when you meet in this sense of the 40 men, 40 boys really at that time, about to enter the same exact situation in life. As a photographer and as a former journalist, I felt like that was something I couldn't really pass up. And what I expected to do was take pictures of them every year and follow their physical change. But honestly, they all stayed in pretty good shape. And there wasn't much steroid use as far as I could tell. There were a couple of suspicious people, but their stories were more compelling in other ways. So I ended up shooting them through the minor leagues. Some of them, of the 20 that I focused on, those were the people who were the most comfortable in front of the camera and didn't mind having me around and spoke English. There were a lot of people who would have been great characters if I spoke Spanish, but there was just too much communication needed. And then some people just didn't like having a camera in their face. So those aren't going to generate any good pictures either. So about 20 out of the 40 are who I focused on, and they've been in exhibitions all over the world. They're in 4 museum collections. There's the Fantasy Life book that I'll be signing, and 6 of them got into the majors. So that's about what Moneyball predicts in terms of the percentage. A couple of them even got World Series rings. One guy got a World Series ring after retiring and coming back. Anyway, so eventually you can see that I got invested in baseball and learned a few things. But anytime I'm on a broadcast talking about baseball, my players, or I call them my players. I mean, they're not my players, but the guys in the project are sitting there like on pins and needles, like, how is she going to screw this up? Because she really doesn't know anything about baseball. But I think I've come a long way. I shot for 15 years. And so they went into the majors, right? And that's when generally people lose interest in America. We want greatness. We want the person getting the Oscar, winning the pennant race, becoming president. But we don't really follow them on the other side when they're rebuilding their identity. So that's what Fantasy Life does. Jeremy Brown became a coal miner. Mark Tien runs a wine bar and does a lot of philanthropic things. One guy ended up homeless. They've all got lives on the other side of baseball as well, which, because of the professionalism in sports, I don't need to tell your audience this, but these kids have been hitting a ball with a stick since they were in kindergarten. How many times do you think that they have either pitched or hit a ball? And at some point, they're not doing that anymore. Sure, some of them became coaches. Lloyd Turner, who's an A's coach now, I mean, you cannot take a bad picture of that man. So there are people who continue to have baseball in their lives, but it's quite a rebranding in terms of who they are to themselves. Who cares about the audience, right? It's more about who they are as a person, and you don't want to watch them just unravel. So I kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And I think that's the unique part of the book. It doesn't stop after they win the World Series.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to think that Nick Swisher wasn't afraid of the camera.
No, he was the easiest person. He was always ready to do whatever I wanted. And that was really a relief, honestly, because sometimes it was like herding cats. I was flying to see Nick play, and this is how I thought about it. Nick was on, I think the Indians by that point, the Cleveland Indians, who are now the Cleveland something else, presumably, and he was playing Jared Burton, who was on the Twins. And as I was flying there to do that, one of them got traded. So there was a lot of time in airports talking to Mark Teahan, expecting to go to Mark Teahan's game for the A's. And instead, he's like, now I'm a Cub. It's like, okay, let me rearrange my flight. So you know how it goes. I mean, I won't name names, but a very important person in baseball and I were walking past a big cooler with a bunch of ice that had been dumped out in the dugout after a game, a very hot game. And he looks and he said, that's like them. They're all melting ice cubes. I get them when they're like the perfect shape and in perfect form. They're the perfect ice cube. And the second they start playing, it's all, for most of them, they depreciate. That was a sad point, but I did take a picture of that ice on the floor. That's what I was kind of best at, finding like the weird things. Like a couple of the guys had so many bone spurs taken out from pitching and catching and in their knees and elbows and this was done when it was legal. It's not legal anymore, so I'm not suggesting this to anybody, but they didn't know what to do with them, and their wives or their houses are filled with this memorabilia, and so they just gave me the bone spurs that had been taken out of their bodies. And next month I've got a whole sculpture full of players' bone spurs and teeth and other parts of bone that had been extricated during a major league and minor league career. And the sculpture will be in SF MoMA in a big show that they're putting on called Get in the Game. But to me, I didn't see a bone spur. I saw a metaphor for how incredible it is that these players want to strive for greatness so intensely that they're willing to put their body through that. For those of us who aren't athletes, to me, that's like a phenomenal thing. I'm sure to most baseball fans, it seems like, well, that's why we pay them the big bucks. But it really does put them through a certain amount of physical stress. And also another time, I mean, I find this interesting. It may be old hat for your audience, but the idea that somebody would get traded despite the team loving them and them playing really well, just because they already had a great third baseman. In Mark Teahan's case, he was traded even though he was adored and he played really well because they already had Chavez. Like those sorts of little bits of luck of placement and the way this whole puzzle fits together. If you get injured or have to have Tommy John surgery and you don't come back, like these are things that have nothing to do with your abilities. It's just luck. And I think Americans feel like, well, if you work hard enough, anything is possible. We're all told that when we're little kids, and it's just not.
Well, the the book is Fantasy Life, Baseball, and the American Dream. This Saturday, East Side Club, Mount Davis, September 21st, 4:30 to 5:30. The book signing. Come check out Tabitha. I think what's going to be fascinating, and I can't wait to see it, is to get the view of our game from someone not in our game. Obviously, you're an artist. I mean, you studied this photography at Stanford. You've had so many projects and so many great things just looking at your resume and your bio. But that's kind of a cool thing, is like seeing baseball through your eyes. Like seeing it through my eyes is one thing. I live it. I'm there every day and I got to do it. Seeing it through your eyes, your lens, is completely different than what my interpretation of the game will be.
Well, and also I thought of my players, my interest in them, because they were traded through to a bunch of different teams, as everyone is, if you're lucky to stay in the game. My interest in those other teams was completely dependent on that player being on it. You know, like the Z-Man has to shoot the great play of the game, and I only have to shoot, you know, Nick Swisher if he's playing first base. Like I could keep my camera poised on one person or two people. So I have some fabulous pictures that really hold up, but I didn't have to go chase the action the way the pro sports photographers did. In the beginning, I showed up with film and they sort of took me under their wing and they were like, nothing's ever going to come out sharp, dude. Like, it's great that you want to be all old school, but all your pictures are going to be blurry. And I got lucky a couple times in a day game. They weren't blurry in the day game, but in the evening games or the night games, I was out of luck. So I had to get the same equipment that they did. But everybody was very supportive and uncompetitive and seemed like you to be interested in somebody who really didn't know much about the game and didn't have a great history with it. Certainly my father was a huge Red Sox fan when I was growing up. And I think I paid less attention to the baseball game itself as the idea that it was important to root for the underdog, which, you know, certainly the A's were at the top of their game. Certain seasons are better than others, but, you know, that idea of rooting for the underdog, I think, leads me to a very compassionate way of moving through the world. So I think baseball affected me in that way more than sort of learning what a walk-off is. And, you know, I can't tell you how many times in the ninth inning I was still expecting to shoot like the second half and like all the players disappear on the field. And I'm like, what's happening? You know, it's like the game, we're ahead. We don't have to play the other half of the inning. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to be such a girl about it, but
no. Well, also it's for our audience, the people who are going to be buying your book and you're going to do the signing this Saturday at 4:30. It's a connection to Moneyball, and that book meant a lot to our fan base. So I think this book will mean a lot to our fan base. It's a connection to something that they love.
Well, Fantasy Life, the book, is dedicated to Billy Beane and Michael Lewis. So without them, I really would have been lost. They both gave me information about why people were drafted and what kinds of, what I should shoot them doing, because that was their asset. Is somebody really fast? Is somebody, whatever their primary skill was. And some of them were there because when they were there emotionally, they were so supportive of the other players in the dugout that the team always played better when they were there. So there are like some intangibles that you can't scout or quantify with numbers and statistics.
Don't tell people in baseball that they think they think they're the smartest guys in the world. I do want to ask you about your time at MTV. I never realized that you were actually in the Beastie Boys video.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's not when I was at MTV. That's when I was in college.
Cool, right? But yeah. I didn't realize you were in that video. And for all of us who grew up loving the Beastie Boys, before you were in MTV, you were in videos. That was a huge video.
Yes, it was. But I'm just in the crowd scene. I have big blonde heavy metal hair. And I think if you watched it in slow motion, you would still have a hard time finding me. But I'm in there.
All right, MTV, you get a big break. It was something that, I'm sure there were people like, wait a minute, you're going to have artists film videos and you're going to show these all day on a cable channel? Because cable, remember, back in our world was still relatively new, depending on where you lived, when you even got cable in your neighborhood, and it was provided. And next thing you know, we have videos. Next thing you know, every Friday night, it's Friday night video fights.
Do you remember the first video you ever saw?
I think it was probably like Madonna, like a prayer or something like that.
So I wasn't at MTV at the very beginning. I didn't come on till 91.
Video killed the radio star.
Well, that was the first video ever, but that wasn't necessarily the one that you saw. The first video I saw was just a live video of AC/DC, nothing fancy. But it was For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. And I mean, I can't tell you what day it is right now, but I have that cemented on my cortex somewhere. But the other thing was, as you say, not everybody had it. And where I lived in Florida, which was Destin, Florida, which is like the thin part, not the cosmopolitan part. It's the part that's basically still part of Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia. And it was very religious where I lived. And we had to protest. A whole bunch of junior high kids had to go and protest for the cable company to have MTV. And they relented. But there was a lot of controversy over it because, the heavy metal people, I guess, were devil worshipers or what have you. So it was, for me, my relationship with MTV was political from the get-go.
Yeah. Well, and even to this day, for us who were alive and around and teenagers during that time, it's even fun now on Sirius XM, the 80s channel on Sirius XM. Some of the people you worked with are still doing playing music on Sirius XM. Yeah, it's great to hear.
I had lunch with Kurt Loder in Los Angeles a couple weeks ago. So he was my news anchor, and we were co-hosts of The Week in Rock together, and we're still great friends.
Did you guys realize how big it was going to be?
No, I don't think anybody did. But it was, when I joined, they had already created a monstrosity. Everybody, you relied on MTV a lot for a lot of cultural information.
Correct.
And that's why I thought, well, people are listening to this channel so closely. Why not educate them about politics? And as you can see, I can take baseball and make it a sad, emotionally fraught pursuit. And I could take MTV and try to get people to start thinking about the earned income tax credit and really sexy things like student debt. I'm sort of like the continual downer.
You're taking bone spurs and ligaments from Tommy John, and now we're getting into politics. No, I like.
I'm a party. I am a freaking party.
Well, to kind of educate our younger viewers, MTV basically would now be what Twitter and TikTok are for the younger generations.
I still cringe when I open up the New Yorker and there is a musician that somebody wrote about that I've never heard of, and they are so important that they warrant a profile in the New Yorker. Whereas I used to be in a situation where I had, my finger on the pulse, and it was just inherent in my job and being in New York City. And now I'm relying on like this old fogey classic magazine to introduce me to, and often they're great. Like they deserve to be in there. But man, it's like, yep, I'm not 20 something anymore.
No, we are not. And bring it up.
Somebody will come into town, a band, and they'll say, do you want to come? We'll put you on the guest list. And I'm like, what time do you go on? And they're like, 10 o'clock. I'm like, no, thank you. I'll get my PJs for an hour by then.
Oh, yeah. If we start talking, I'm going to kill my younger audience. Start talking Michael Jackson, Madonna, Quiet Riot. Yeah, everybody be like, what?
Sweetie, I am not that old. Those people were way before me. My Madonna was still around, obviously. But
they became big. The videos.
Yes. All those people would not be in our... we would not be talking about them without MTV for sure. I mean, Michael Jackson, obviously, but it was really fun being in the news department because we got to cover and introduce our audience to musicians who weren't necessarily in heavy rotation on MTV. And I still listen to kind of obscure people that don't have a lot of streams. So it was kind of nice feeling like, oh, wait, I got something for you. You may not have heard this, but it's amazing. And whereas the people in the video music department, those people had to generate a lot of eyes. And so it had to be the big people like Janet Jackson or, I don't know, Sting, or those people that I never felt very excited about, because I don't know, there's something about turning people on to some like undiscovered gem that's really fun, which is honestly, I think, just to circle back, because I'm the super seg, I think that's what Michael Lewis was interested in when he walked over to the Oakland Coliseum from our house in Berkeley and met with Billy. He felt like there was a lot going on in the A's back office and on the field that people were not getting or appreciating.
Well, the book, Fantasy Life, Baseball, and the American Dream, this Saturday, East Side Club, signing 4:30 to 5:30. Thank you so much for your time. And
Chris, it's been so fun. Thank you so much.
After the season, we should do this again, because there's a lot I think we could go into when you start talking a little bit more about living the Moneyball life that also influenced the book. But thank you. We appreciate it, and good luck on Saturday.
All right, Chris. Thank you so much.
I know for some of you, MTV has just been reality TV, but for some of us, we grew up watching MTV, and it was music videos, and it was the biggest artists from all different genres. It was huge. And the point of what TikTok or X, Twitter is now, that's kind of what MTV was. That's where the younger generation went for a lot of things, and MTV numbers just grew so fast. Yeah, and they started doing news and started doing politics, and they tried to get young people to vote, and it was fascinating. Then all of a sudden, gone, and it's reality TV. But back in the day, all the big artists would come on, and, not only did they have their videos, and those videos made them a ton of money. MTV, she was a big deal. They were all a big deal. They were stars. And yeah, if you have Sirius XM, Channel 8 is the 80s channel, and all the old VJs, as they called them, there's a bunch of them that are still there broadcasting. It's kind of cool. Now, for some of you who are younger, you're like, I have no idea. Totally understand. But if you're old enough to remember how big MTV was massive. You didn't have as many, even back then with cable, you didn't have as many channels, you didn't have as many options, and people loved MTV. The Friday night video fights, where you would take two different videos and people could call in, and whoever got the most, they probably rigged it, but whoever got the most yay votes was the winner. Supposedly that got huge ratings. You couldn't wait. Who's going to take down Quiet Riot this Friday night? I'm glad we booked her. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for my generation, it was TRL, Total Request Live, with Carson Daly was the big show on MTV when we were growing up.
And then what was it? Road Rules is huge. And then what else was on? Wasn't the first the one in San Francisco? Was Big Brother originally on MTV?
I thought that was CBS always.
What was the reality show that was on where people were living together?
Real World.
Real World, yes.
I think it's
Real World.
Hell, some guys on there, like The Miz, went on to become professional wrestlers.
Well, those cable channels blew up. They absolutely blew up. Another one that blew up, you might have heard of it. It's called ESPN. There were people who thought there's no way you can show sports 24/7. Do you remember what was on ESPN?
No, because I was too young.
Australian rules football, the Canadian League. They had random stuff on ESPN originally. There was no NFL, Major League Baseball or basketball, college football. College basketball, that wasn't there. College basketball started to show up because people wanted content. But those original cable channels, everybody said this is never going to work. Just like they said A's Cast is never going to work.
Here we are now.
Yeah. Doug Glanville, Sunday Night Baseball, former player, terrific player. Sunday Night Baseball, The Athletic, as a writer and a podcaster with Jason Stark. Professor at UConn. What else does he do? He does
Marquee.
Marquee Sports is stuff for the Cubs. But his big thing is ESPN, right?
Yeah.
He'll be all over the playoffs. Doug Glanville will be all over it as an analyst, former outfielder, and he joined me earlier on A's Cast Live. Coming up after that will be A's baseball game 2 between the Cubs and the Athletic. We'll be back Friday, our last show in the Treehouse, 4 o'clock. Come see us in the Treehouse, our last ever show from the Treehouse. I open the Treehouse. I will close the Treehouse.
Yeah, we'll have Marquee. We'll have an A's player. We'll get some other people up there. Last time. I'm trying to see if our good friend Lou Trevino is traveling with the Yankees, so we'll try to get Lou up there, do something with Lou beforehand.
All right.
If he's there, so.
Our last show from the Treehouse. Come see us Friday at 4 o'clock. Here is Doug Glanville. Great to have you on the program. How are you here at the very end of the season?
Oh, I love red eyes and overnights, and I'm basically a zombie. But I'll be shifting gears into playoff mode, and then I'll find my second win. Is that what zombies get? Is it second poison?
No, you just keep going. You're a zombie.
Yeah.
You just keep going.
That's true. Nothing stops you. So yeah, I'm good.
And you got school, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't have it in the fall, and this spring coming up, I'm going to be like more of an advisory role, because I just kind of need to reset on, first of all, I want to freshen up the class is one thing, and just got to regroup on a couple things. Might do some mentoring, might start do something with an internship program. So I'm going to have a little different role, but I'll still have some, connection certainly with UConn. And, but yeah, I want to write more. I want to just get back to that. And there's a lot of memorabilia I have that I just haven't dealt with. I want to unbox it and write about it. And so there's a little bit of a sort of, let me regroup and get back into it in another way. So that's what I'm trying to do with the off season once we get there.
Well, I mean, you think about a baseball life and how you've been going as a player, as a broadcaster, and all the things and a writer, all the things that you've been doing. Maybe it sounds like finally for the first time in how many years taking a step back and going, wow, I got to reevaluate this whole thing. And yeah, your journey, kind of chronicling your journey, would be really cool, because your journey's been amazing.
I mean, I've been really fortunate, and I love the game. It's just been, what's been great for me is being able to connect the game to so many parts of society. Right? I teach it, I'm just able to connect and make social change, whatever. So that has been big for me. And like today I went to a framer because I have a Jackie Robinson jersey signed by Rachel Robinson.
Wow.
And the glass broke like not too long ago. And I took it to this framer. I was like, you know what? This is like really significant. I need to step it up a level on the previous frame, which I won at an auction. So I went in and I was pretty excited to get something that's like, museum glass, and I'm like hooking it up. And it's like taking that minute to realize I have all this memorabilia history that I haven't really dealt with in some level. So, it's a little smell of the roses. Like at the end of my career, I got autographed bats from all these players that I admired from afar, or my teammates. And I thought it was a good time to step back and do that. So I'm in that stage right now. And it's also a good time to write and sort of talk about it in another way. So I'm going to just definitely take the time to go through this stuff and really, just find a way to kind of preserve it in a sense that's more than just for myself,
I want to start out today talking about managers, because we have downplayed the managers over time in baseball, and I don't like it. I've been very fortunate to get pretty close with our managers because I'm around them. I do their weekly shows. Bob Melvin is a good friend. I've now known Mark Kotze. I played against Mark Kotze in college, so I've known Mark Kotze for a long, long time. And I was just thinking about a couple guys, and the Brewers can clinch the NL Central. And I think about the job, and of course the A's are taking on the Cubs, and you think about Counsell leaving to Chicago. Pat Murphy, longtime Arizona State head coach, has been in the big leagues, takes over.
Yeah.
Pat Murphy's about to, he lost the star pitcher. He's lost players. He's about to be the manager of the NL Central champion. That's a really big deal.
And probably manager of the year on top of that. So it is a big deal. And look, I know Pat Murphy made a lot of, paid his dues. When they talk about made every step along the way. I played against Pat Murphy in college when Craig Counsell was there at Notre Dame, and we went back and kind of wait a minute, this actually happened. So we reminisced on a podcast about that. And, Pat is just, there is what do you call it? Old school grinder, however you want to phrase it, but he gets the most. I remember listening, what he was talking about on the podcast about assigning almost like captains and leadership. And he has like a C-suite of baseball players that come together and are really considered the leaders, Reese Hoskins and Willie Adames and so on. So I think he's just done a fantastic job, considering that Craig Counsell leaves. They lose, like you said, all the, Corbin Burns and they just don't miss a beat. In fact, they kind of go another level. That's what's exciting about it. And that's a marketplace that, despite not having the World Series, they win. They're just used to winning, and they expect to win. And it's almost like a family business there, the way they kind of approach it. And Murphy's fit right in.
Yeah, you look at Kansas City and what they have done this year, the great turnaround and all the wins. The A's, Mark Kotze, were 15 better as of right now than last year. Give A.J. Hinch a lot of credit. I mean, the Tigers are still in this thing. And I think about our guy, Stephen Vogt, who, we've known for so long and we love him to death, crying yesterday after that comeback win about how much he loves these guys. People need to remember that somebody's got to sit at the front of the plane. Someone's got to sit at the front of the bus. Someone's got to talk to these guys. Players have issues like everybody else off the field. Someone has to deal with the human beings and manage the personalities and the egos. I think we really forget how important these managers really are.
We do, because no matter what, you try to quantify all these things like, this, that, and wins and expected wins. But in the end, there's so many intangibles about what they bring. And even in a season you're not necessarily winning, you have managers that set up for next year, create good habits for the organization. It's like all kinds of things you can't really always quantify. And kudos to Mid-America baseball this year, right? You named all these teams: Cleveland, Milwaukee, Kansas City, Minnesota. There's teams that are these are really good teams. They're well managed. They catch the ball. There's a lot of kind of old school fundamentals going on that's exciting. And then you have young managers like Vogt, who's not necessarily young from the standpoint of he played a long time, but the fact that he's absolutely hit the ground running behind Terry Francona. I mean, that's an incredible season. And so I'm excited about that. I think there's always these shifts, and I love that there's also these veterans like a Bruce Bochy and Rob Thompson, getting chances late in their careers, Pat Murphy, that are able to get these shots and absolutely run with it. They step right in, and they kind of know what to do instinctively and also by preparation.
September baseball.
Yeah.
You know what it's about. Tell us there's a difference. I mean, I always tell everybody, because 2012, when the A's reeled into the Rangers and it came down to the last day, it's like, hey, those games in April and May count just as much as they do in August and September. But tell us the difference of playing at this time of the year where we got a bunch of teams trying to get into the postseason. What is it like?
Well, I feel like it's a big reach down gut check, because the reality is you're tired. You are tired because you started in March, February, January, training around the clock, but you started and it has been nonstop. Everything probably hurts on some level. It's like we had Whit Merrifield on. He was like, well, I have a broken foot. I have he's not even thinking of stopping. He's just like, okay, whatever. That's kind of where you are, but then you're motivated and inspired by opportunity, by chance, just the sliver of hope that you can get there, win this thing, and just do something historical. I just love that feeling. I didn't have a lot of teams that were in contention late, but I'll always remember 2003 with the Cubs and just how it just was infectious. You get that taste. And I'm telling you, that first time I poured champagne, you were like, I never want to stop doing this. You just once you taste that championship or winning a division and winning a round of the playoffs, you're just like, why not us? It's so much fun to see the players emerge, it's teammates, guys that just find another gear. And the fans, the fans are locked in because they just know that, ball bounces their way and they could be this unexpected champion. So I'm excited about it. When I was in Chicago, I remember the ivy would change colors.
Yeah.
And Josh Paul and I call it the red ivy, that's just how it would shift colors. So if you're playing with the red ivy out there in Chicago and the vines are kind of dead or dying or the leaves are all off, you're like, okay, that's where I want to be. So yeah, just great memories of just, September, the weather changing again. And you realize that you were on this giant bell curve. It was winter when you started and you went through all the warm weather and then you came back on the other side and you're still playing.
Well, you think about right now in the National League, you got 3 teams for 2 spots. When you look at Arizona and you look at New York and you look at Atlanta, speaking of managers and the jobs that they're doing, but just kind of handicap how you see that. You got 3 teams for 2 spots.
I mean, look, the Mets kind of came out of nowhere in some respects. They knew the talent was there, but you weren't sure they were going to figure it out. And I give Carlos Mendoza a lot of credit as the manager. He was patient. He told us early in the season, this is what we're working on. And then he got it. He corrected it. And then he got the buy-in. And then Lindor became the leadoff hitter. And then it was like, go. And he really is, he was a catalyst to changing their whole season. So you knew the talent was there. They spent the money, but that's not obviously, we just talked about how not necessarily the formula. And Mendoza's done a really good job quickly to figure out a ship that could have absolutely sunk into the ocean, but they kind of reeled it back and was able to turn this around. And I think you combine that with the Diamondbacks, who were also kind of started off okay, sluggish, injuries, and then boom, they said, wait a minute, we were in the World Series last year. So I look at them and I see much improved team that has kind of quiet pitching depth. You're like, wait a minute, where do these guys come from? They've made some moves. And I think the postseason, they've shown that they can rise to the occasion, especially with those days off in between games, or, that makes a big difference because you're not playing, you have the 3 wild card games and you have these sporadic days off, rest your closer, whatever you have to do. And then I look at the Braves. I just saw the Braves this past weekend and they're still scary. I mean, they don't have Riley, they don't have Acuna, they don't have Albies, but they still have some guys that, first of all, can pitch and, really good. Iglesias was unhittable this season, but for the most part. So they're really scary to me. I never count the Braves out because they just have a way, and they have they, by the way, have tons of talent. And if any of those guys come back, like Albies or somebody, I would say look out. So yeah, I don't know. Winning wise, I didn't have the Mets necessarily in spring training, but then I didn't have a lot of teams, so it doesn't matter. Predictions are just meant to be burned to the ground. But I think the D-backs are definitely in a good position in a really good division. And I'm curious about the schedule strength. I'm not sure who's got the weaker schedule, but in the end, you got to beat major league teams. So I don't necessarily count that for a whole lot.
Now, you just had the Dodgers also when you were doing the broadcast with the Braves. Are you buying the Ohtani could pitch in the postseason?
Not so much. It's one of those long shot possibilities. But he hasn't faced any hitters. He hasn't had to go through recovery. The question then is like, are you really going to risk it as the Dodgers? This guy's having like a Hall of Fame season.
Yeah.
And then he blows out on some ridiculous, assignment. And then you're just like, what do we do that for? Especially if he has a shot of getting fully healthy in the offseason and then coming back a two-way player. So it's more that than it is like, can he do it? Ohtani can do anything. I'm sure he could probably throw left-handed if he had to. But this guy is, just monumental. But the Dodger pitching is a big story to me because all the injuries, everybody. And then it's funny, we talked to Dave Roberts before the game on Sunday, and we talked about the injuries, and he just got the Glasnow news and this horrible stuff. And then I saw them pitch that game. I'm like, these relievers they have are amazing. Like, they have amazing. So I'm just saying, you guys are all right. You have Yamamoto, maybe Walker Buehler. You have some dudes that can pitch here, and Jack Flaherty, and then you have just a cavalcade of really good arms from Gratterall to Phillips to Vesia. This team's kind of loaded. So I think the Dodgers will be fine. The Diamondbacks did it last year with really 2 starters for a little while till Pfaadt came into his own. I think, why not the Dodgers?
Let's end on this. Some years there's just clear cut. You're going to win the National League MVP. You're going to win the American League MVP. You're Rookie of the Year. But this year, like with Bobby Witt last night, hitting a grand slam, stealing another bag almost at 30-30. He's doing something that we haven't seen since Stan Musial in 1949. We brought up Lindor. We're talking about shortstops. I mean, there's all these different players on all these different teams. Everybody thinks for sure it's going to be Judge and Ohtani. Even in the National League, a Rookie of the Year, we saw Eamon Yaga last night. He has been absolutely phenomenal this year for the Cubs. And by the way, his personality is off the charts. But you got Merrill and San Diego playing every single day. Skeens is a star. There's going to be guys who win these awards, but then there's going to be a lot of guys you're going to go, wow, how did they not win?
And there'll be guys that have careers you're like 20 years later, you're like, yeah, okay. They're still playing. Look, I struggle with the MVP in general because there's part of me that says, like, what would I vote for? And what I realize the game is kind of prioritizes. And it's still have bat will travel. I mean, there's WAR and there's more stats to underscore the versatility of players. But the bat, when you do historic things with the bat, that's it. You're not going to compete. And I think sometimes that's unfortunate. Like Aaron Judge, incredible. I mean, he's just an incredible, ambassador. This guy, the offense, when you watch this guy, it is another level. It's something special about Judge. The discipline at the plate, if you get in the zone, it's gone. He doesn't hit a lot of ground balls. You walk him, he'll steal a base. I mean, he's just a brilliant player. But here's the thing. Bobby Witt Jr. does everything, and I mean everything, to the level that is all-star. He is, and I just don't understand why a guy like that doesn't get just more points, right? I mean, it's like, and Judge isn't one-dimensional, but he's not a center fielder compared to Witt as a shortstop, for example. Like, it's not even close defensively, right? And, so I just sit there and go, Witt runs, hits for power, hits for average, Gold Glove. He even makes defenses worse. He's so daggone fast. So I'm just like, how is this not the best player in baseball? He probably is the best player in baseball. It doesn't mean you're the most valuable, right? So I'm torn with that. I struggle with that. And I get it. I know, I do realize Judge is like here, okay, offensively. He is. But that's one part of the game. And I'm not saying that, and that part of the game may impact the game more than any. I understand that. But like when you're looking at someone, you're saying, he does all these things. So go to the National League. I love Ohtani. And if you're 50-50, you're going to make a history. It's hard to vote against that. But Lindor is like a defensive genius. He's a phenomenal base runner. He's a leadoff hitter. He's a switch hitter. He's on the field. He's impacting a game, as Buck Showalter would say, in more ways than a DH can or a guy who's much more bat. He just impacts a game. So I just, why isn't that more valuable? I can't answer that question. I can't. And I can't in good faith say, like, I understand the numbers of OPS, Judge versus Witt, but Bobby Witt Jr. is a magician in every facet of the game and literally can carry a team on his back. He probably will carry an organization on his back, the Royals. And and Judge can do that as well. But I just love the versatility. And we're not talking about good at everything. We're talking about great at everything and elite skill set. That's all I got.
Well, as we bill you every single time coming on as the smartest man in baseball. It's always an honor to have you on. You're absolutely fabulous. All the stuff that you do, podcast, broadcasting, author, you name it. Get some sleep. You got a lot of baseball to call coming up here, and we'll definitely be listening. But always, we truly appreciate the time.
All right, man. Always a pleasure being on anytime, and look forward to talking this postseason.
Be well.
Hey, Oakland A's fans, step up to the plate with Xfinity Internet. Get the fastest speeds and low-lag streaming for an incredible viewing experience that knocks it out of the park. And you'll have a consistent connection with reduced buffering and freezing, so you can stay in all the action inning after inning. When it's game time, make sure to catch it all with internet that's powerful and reliable. Stream sports from the best seat in the house with Xfinity, because it's only live once. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed. Many factors affect speed. For fact.
Railroad tracks on the other side of the river. Is it between the east side and the west side? At Comerica Bank, we believe it's all one community, and we're all part of it. That's why Comerica has invested over $20 million for affordable housing, financial education, and workforce development in lower-income communities. Because when we raise expectations for everyone, we all rise. Member FDIC, Equal Opportunity Lender.
This is the place where you can dance like nobody's watching, win like nobody's business, and get away like you mean it. So what are you waiting for? Come join the party. Take that evening out and make it a night you'll never forget. This kind of action can't be beat.
This is Chris Townsend, and it is summertime. You want to look your best, and I can't tell you how excited I am. Commander Cody, we've got our new shipment from Link Soul, all the summer gear. So whether you're playing golf or you're going out for dinner, you're hanging out with your buddies, or you're going to the beach, go see our friends at linksoul.com. And right now they have an offer where you can get 20% off. Go to linksoul.com. Remember, in the big leagues, look good, play good.
Hi, fans. This season, Kingsford Capital Management is the official hedge fund sponsor of the Oakland A's. At Kingsford, down to business is their way of seeing the world. Investing has its pitfalls, treacherous chasms of half-truth and despair. Kingsford's mission is to create opportunity through application of proven innovation and entrepreneurial focus with trust, tenacity, loyalty, and growth, establishing a strong reputation as a proven intended and validated bedrock of American finance. Kingsford Capital, down to business.
With the sunshine returning, it's time for golf, and more golf at Cinnabar Hills Golf Club. Cinnabar Hills is also your destination for great food with their beautiful renovated restaurant and quality craft beer selection at their full bar. Featuring a grass driving range and 27 championship caliber holes, Cinnabar Hills Golf Club is the best public course in the Bay Area. For more information, go to cinnabarhills.com. That's cinnabarhills.com.
Ever wondered what a 30-foot tall pistachio looks like? A giant redwood or Big Sur? Chevron with Techron will be there to help you see them and tons of other places you have to see to believe. Because with unbeatable mileage and a clean engine, cars feel great. So next time you want to fill up on a little adventure, an awkward family photo, or a new commute to work, make sure to fill up at Chevron's along the way. Your car and your memories will thank you. Chevron with Techron, fueled by possibility.
If you're looking for a new mattress, Nest Bedding has you covered. Sleep on the same mattress Hall of Famer Ricky Henderson sleeps on. Nest Bedding is the #1 brand of online mattresses and the Bay Area's favorite mattress store. Take home the Easy Breather pillow. The New York Times calls it their #1 pick. You can navigate their easy-to-use website, nestbedding.com. That's nestbedding.com. Green and gold fans, use the coupon code Oakland, and you'll get 10% off your entire order. Nest Bedding. Love where you sleep.
The A's YouTube page is your go-to destination for A's video content. Get access to great highlights, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, classic games, A's Cast Live, and more. Visit youtube.com/athletics.
This has been a presentation of the Oakland Athletics.